So, okay, first of all, is it okay if I record this?
Yeah, of course.
Because we're gonna make you a star.
I don't know about
Yeah.
that.
Well, it's the things. Of course, I knew you when you were, I think, 13 even back then, right? So obviously, I follow you, so definitely you're on my page of stardom. But in particular, though, I don't know if you follow, what I do. Since you left to school, I basically went into mental strength coaching, and which, as you know, is a big part of the game. And that's where you come in. Because I remember, what, I don't know if your mom, I don't know if your mom ever told you how we came to work together. Did she say anything about that to you?
In terms of how we started going to ORC?
Yeah.
Not really, no. She just mentioned that it would be a good idea for me if I wanted to start back up again. Don't really remember. It was a long time ago.
Oh, that's okay. We're going to go into that. So we're going to be talking a lot about the time that we worked together and how you shifted. You made a huge shift from almost quitting, if I remember, like that.
Very, very close. Yes.
Like right there. You were going away. I remembered you were going away for a month. Like you had it. It was like after National 18s outdoors, actually. And I hadn't seen you for like a year until then. Remember how you came to Atlanta and for the ITF? That's when I first met you.
Yes, yeah. I have pictures of that. We had a dinner with, I think it was Brenta was there too, Isabel.
Really?
Other people, Justin, yeah.
You have to send it to me. That would be that would be fun if you still have it. So I remember seeing you then, and then and of course Nationals under 18 summer, and I was like, wow, I wonder what happened. You just did not look happy on the court. You were definitely on your way out more than stay, and that's when I approach a mom and I think maybe I can, we should work together. I know I can help. I know I can help Anca. And I remember your mom was like, yeah, we're going away for a month and not playing anymore. And I was like, I remember specifically at that time, I'm like, give me a month, give me 1 month, and then she can quit after. I mean, what's another month?
That's true.
She's gonna quit anyway, so what's another month? So and that's how we started working together, which I to me it's a fairy tale story. Your story is a fairy tale story because so many athletes, right? Not just tennis players, any athletes, any high achievers will go through the ups and downs, and sometimes they stay down lower than they want to, and then when you can't find your way back, that's when you call it quits. But you didn't. So I got a few questions for you actually from some people. So
oh, really?
Yeah, so tell me a little bit what school, because of course we're going to do snippets of this video. So tell me what school you're attending, what year you're attending, what major you're in, and that you're on the team.
So I'm at University of Michigan. This is my junior year, I guess, counting the COVID year off, still junior, so we'll see about that. And then I'm studying statistics here, and I think that was all questions.
Oh, the brain statistics. Okay. Are you having fun? Is that a good word for somebody majoring in statistics? Because I'm like,
it's a very rare word that we use. It's in the vocabulary sometimes, but not very often.
But it's not often felt.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not often felt. Perfect. I like honesty. Did you? How did you come to your major?
Honestly, I just always liked math and I associated school with math. And I don't know if I'm great at math or anything like that, but I just figured it was something that could be applicable to anything. And I'm not entirely sure what industry I want to go into after school. So I feel like that would keep my options open. And now I'm potentially looking at doing an MBA after to use my 1 year of eligibility. So I think statistics will be a good major to get me into that program.
Okay, so explain to the audience, how did you get that 5th year?
We had a COVID incident last year.
And still at it?
Just a little global pandemic, nothing too serious. But then the fall and spring sports got a year back to compensate for the fact that we only got to play 1 or 2 matches before everything was kind of shut down for health reasons.
And that's a bonus for you because, as you said, you're looking to go into to MBA, and so your 5th year. Normally, your scholarships for 4 years, right?
Yep.
Because you get that year back, your 5th year is actually going to be paid for.
Yep. Which, I mean, I can't complain being able to keep playing the sport that I love and also get higher education. So I guess it worked out.
Okay, perfect. No, that's just a bonus. That is so great. I know, like, some people, are in their 6th year or 7th year.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're so ready to finish with school and get into the real world by then. So I want you to, it may be a little bit painful. I want you to maybe get back into, before we get there, you're on the women's tennis team. How did you make that transition? Was it difficult from, the juniors, from being home, and then you have to transition into, university where you're free?
Yeah, it was a big shift, I would say, in terms of the independence that you have and the structure of it being a team sport now instead of individual. So I felt a little, I don't know how to say, just different in terms of the energy and what practice is like and what you're bringing to the team, because now it's not just all about improving yourself, it's about doing whatever you can to help the team get better. So that was a huge shift. And then also on the other side, outside of the court, it's just so different being able to be on your own and have to take responsibility for everything in your life. Now you don't have mom and dad looking out for you in the background. So that
Although they're
was
still
a big
around,
difference.
though, I
Yeah,
bet.
I
Yeah.
guess, yeah, they're only a couple hours away, so I was fortunate in that sense, but I mean, still was a huge change for sure.
Yeah, you have to juggle with the schedule, because sometimes you might train in the morning in one season, and then the next season you have to shift, and then train
Right.
in the afternoon. Also, the environment, like you said, you go from just you on the court, and now it's, even on your bad days, you still have to show up and train and fight, because there's a team aspect. You can't let your team down.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
And that's
that's
a
a big
bonus,
part of it.
though. Don't you think that's a bonus, though, in a team event? Because, if you have very bad losses, like you did, in those years, then you just sort of drown in your own sorrow and thoughts. But then in a team event, in a team environment, you have a bad match, and then you have to, like, the team is there to just support you and get you back up, a lot quicker than if you were on your own. Would you say that was true?
Oh, for sure. I definitely had a couple matches, clincher matches for sure. You remember the most where, your team is there to support you even after you did the best and you couldn't get the win for everyone. And those ones hurt the most, but it's a lot easier to get past those moments when you have teammates there and coaches that are going to have your back and tell you that it's okay. Or maybe you lose a match, but the team wins overall. So then you get that positive aspect to it as well.
So there's pros and cons. Another, not so not there's another aspect there that people might not be aware of, is when you change coaches, right? So you were working with me for a few years, and then you go into another environment and having to understand the language from that coach. And that takes time, because sometimes people are lucky, they gel right away, and others have a difficult time to still understand the language, even though you speak English. But I always feel like there's a tennis language, that needs to be understood. It's different. It's a language of itself.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, every coach has a different coaching style, so it does take a little bit of time to adapt. But I mean, personally, it's been great here in terms of our coaching experience. And I mean, it's tough for any situation when you're used to one thing before matches, and then now you have to adapt. And it's more of just understanding that it's what's best for the team, and you just have to figure out a way to change your mentality going into it.
You have to grow up very quickly in that,
Yeah,
that team
exactly.
concept, right? And it is I can see how that can be very difficult, because you want to solve when you have bad matches, right? You want to just stay down, but then in a team you got to snap out of it immediately and get on get on with the program, and adjusting to whatever coaches come your way, because the coaches they're trying to put a winning team together and get the
For sure.
W every time they go out there. So take me back to one of the questions is advice you would give yourself, when you were like 12 or 13. So looking back, what would you advise your younger self?
Wow. A lot of things, honestly, but I guess one of the bigger
Well,
ones was to think about the bigger picture. I think back then I put so much pressure on myself in terms of any results now, and I didn't spend as much time as I would have liked. And now I'm realizing it, just developing my game for the long term. And I think that pressure that I put on myself caused me to get to that point where I kind of felt a little burnt out. And it was a bunch of different factors put together, but one of them was that I had so much pressure on myself the whole time, starting from a young age, that at one point it just blew up, and I was like, I need a break from this mentally. So I think if I could tell myself and go back in time that it's not the biggest thing to lose a match right now when you're 12 or 13. There's going to be plenty more throughout your career. And if I really understood that concept, it would have helped me a lot.
I remember also when we were starting to work together. Hopefully, you remembered. Was my objective for you was to have fun, because I don't know if you remember that word. I'm like, we're not going to do any other drill until you show me you have fun on the court, because if you don't like what you're doing, if you don't show that you're having fun, it would be very difficult. Specifically, I remembered when you were in the finals at the 18s indoors, and leading up to it, I could see like you were really working on staying in the moment and just dealing with each match one at a time. And then when finals hit, of course, there was that setup with the TV on the side, and commentators. And I'm looking out on the court. I'm like, oh boy, okay. And you walked on the court, and I was like, okay, so you're walking a little stiff, And I remember on the side, I was like, just have fun. I don't know how many, I could have just recorded myself, have fun, and just play every time you walk past. So the pressure that you felt that you put on yourself to get results now, did you have success? Because obviously I didn't start working with you until you were like 15. So when you were younger, did you have a lot of results when you were younger?
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that made me more competitive, is I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform constantly every day. And no matter what match it was, now it's not great to say that I was very hard on myself. Every point I would think about what I did wrong and how I could improve it for the next one. But I think growing up, it's actually, there are some positive sides to that mindset because you're always trying to get better and you're always there competing no matter who you're playing. So it did lead to some pretty good results in my junior career that led me to get recruited by Tennis Canada, get a lot of opportunities on the road, make some connections. So I think that did help. But now when you're transitioning to a different level and a different game, it's not as simple to be hard on yourself because you kind of have to be your best friend out there because now there's so many more aspects into it than there was in junior tennis. So if you're not like in college tennis, you've got opponents and other teammates from the other team screaming at you. You can't
In the
be your
crowd.
and yeah, exactly. You can't be your enemy as well because then it's basically you against everyone. So I think in juniors it helps you develop when you have that mindset, but later on in life it's you have to have this switch where you're kind of being a little nicer to yourself.
And that comes with, maturity, and I believe some understand that. Some can understand that when they're younger, be your best cheerleader, because if
Mhm.
you are not, then who is? Because at the end of the day, you're the one that's out there facing the stress, facing the pressure from your opponent, from the environment, and yourself. And I believe that we are our worst enemies. We really are.
Mhm.
And there are days where I still use, yeah, it's amazing. I still use words where I used when I was an athlete. When I was a player on the tour, when things got really tough, and let's do it. You can do it. One step at a time. And then I was like, wait a minute. That's like, that's like tennis talks. The that is what I'm trying really, really hard in bringing the message to the players I work with. I started with you and among, but now I do more workshops, with the
Mhm.
mental training on the workshops, and then helping parents to understand is that that mindset the younger they can get a hold of that mindset and understand, be your best cheerleader and really have fun, you know, doing what you're doing on the court. Having fun, obviously, when you're 4 or 5 years old, that's playground fun. But as you go
Mhm.
into tournaments, it's about progressive fun, having, being productive, improving on your skills and on yourself. And there is one thing where gets iffy when you talk about it, right? People talk about, oh, just do the best you can. Now, I always found that funny. It's funny because think about it. I'm sure that was your case. You had success, meaning you won a lot, not just matches, tournaments, titles when you were younger. So you went out there, you wanted to win, and you found ways to win. And as you got older, it sounded like between 13, 12 to 15, that range, somewhere you wanted to win, but obviously everyone around you also grew taller and stronger and smarter as well, right? And in that 12 to 15, instead of going out and just say, yeah, sure, I want the win, and focus on, like, how do I manage my nerves? Because I believe that the older you are, the more nerves you're going to feel, because you feel every sense, right? um but you got sucked in that range of didn't know how to deal with your nerves, the stress and the pressure.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of I was so tough on myself, which helped earlier on. So it was hard to find a balance between, people always say, yeah, like you said, do the best that you can. But to me, that sounded like, oh, I'm going to go in there and say it's okay to lose. And that's not what I want to do. So it was hard to find that balance where I'm like, I'm going to work on my game and I can lose points and that's okay as long as I find a way to win overall in the match. And if I don't, but I'm doing the right thing, then it's going to help me later on, which at that time I was 13 and losing matches was like the worst thing I could possibly imagine. So it was hard to get into that mindset. And I think once I saw that everyone, like you said, caught up, and the people that had maybe not been so successful earlier on, but were doing the right things to work on their game, it started catching up to me in the sense that I was just doing whatever I needed to do to win at the time. And now the game changed, and I didn't develop my tools enough because I was so focused on winning earlier on. So I think that's what kind of came as a shock to me. I didn't understand that that's why this was happening. I just started not having as many results as I would like, and having that same mindset of everything I do is to win kind of caused me to, yeah, get bummed out or panic and not really know how to deal with the nerves of being on the court.
Yeah, obviously, winning is the end goal. That's what
Mhm.
everybody wants to do. I can't imagine anybody would just say, okay, I'm going to train and go out there and lose. Well, you don't really need to train to lose. You just go out there. So obviously that is the end goal, which everybody wants. And I actually, with you, that's what I did, was the head, heart, and feet. Do you remember? We worked on, like,
Mhm.
the head part, would be just having fun, right?
Mhm.
You're just having fun out there. And then the heart is, when things, which they will go wrong or don't feel right, you still have to work through it to push through the barrier. And it's 99.99, if not 100% of the time, when you step on the court, it's all about problem solving,
Mhm.
right? So if you cave in and just throw in the towel, then it's tough. In your case, I felt like you were in this cocoon of frustrations. You wanted to win. You didn't have a plan. You didn't have a plan to execute. It'll be like, me from Toronto wanting to drive to Michigan, for example. I need a GPS, right? So those are my waypoints. Those are my plans. How do I plan to get there? And then now the third thing is to execute the plan, and then you tweak along the plans. So, having you started with having a goal. The reason that I knew I could do my part, and I was fairly confident. Of course, I can say that now, right? And I was, because I saw you when you were 14. That was when I first saw you, when you were 14. You were athletic, and you were competitive, but you were lost. That's what I saw. Well, when I saw you a couple of years later, right?
Mhm.
So when I first saw you at 14, you were athletic, you were competitive, and you were finding your way on development because you were with the team. You were traveling with the team. When I saw you a few years later, that was lost. That was taken away from you, and you didn't know how to get out of your fog, right?
Mhm.
So in anything that I believe, like I said earlier, people, I had to simplify it for you, because you're very complicated, because you're so smart, because you said it, you put so much pressure on you to be perfect, right? And I also reminded you, with like, okay, we're not working on perfect, we're just working on mastering this backhand. We're working on adaptation, so I had to really chunk it down, so that, to move forward, a lot of times we have to back up 3, 4, 5 steps. In your case, maybe 10 steps, because because you didn't want to play anymore, right? So I had
Mhm.
to almost convince you why you needed to be out there.
Mhm.
See, if you had not tried that, you would never know that you would be where you are today,
Yeah,
right? You
for
would
sure.
probably, yeah, maybe you still get there, but I just think like it's so much more fun when you are on a team, and representing the school, and then the student athlete lifestyle. It's 4 or 5 years of fun before you have to actually become an adult. So the struggles that you have was a lot to do with, yeah, you were putting the pressure on yourself. And also, one of the 10, by the way, in my workshop, I talk about the 10 stressors, that how people put on, pressure on, ended up putting pressure on themselves. One of them obviously is having fun out there, and it's second, actually, tactics. Remember, we
Mhm.
used to talk a lot about tactics, when you're playing a certain player, what
Mhm.
they like, what they don't like, and also understanding what your strengths were, because, your kick serve was one of the best kick serves out there. I haven't seen you in a while, so I can't say now. But at the time, it was one of the, it was one, and that was your strength, is to also identify when you go to compete, what are your strengths? Because you know what, a lot of players don't know what their strengths are. And then, so they know that they know what they don't like, or they call it weakness, where I don't necessarily call it weakness. It's just, it's not their weapon. But when something's not a weapon, it's not a weakness. It's just, it can be, I call it consistency, or use the side to set it up. However, and then you were among a lot of the players where I felt like you didn't understand, you didn't come from, okay, identifying what my strengths are, your kick serve and your forehand inside out, right?
Mhm.
And then that backhand down the line, when you took it up early, when you move up to the ball early, was a sensational shot. But we had to identify that for you, so that you're like, oh yeah, I can just use these 2-3 shots. And then on top of that, you look across to your opponent, what they like and what they don't like, and the awareness on the court. However, when the mind goes south under stress, you're not going to see a lot of that, right? But are you using that now? I hope so.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think what you talked about is, and what I did a lot in the nationals when I had success that tournament, is even though I wasn't playing my best, because I don't think even though I won the tournament, I couldn't say that was my best tennis that I've played. I think what got me there was that mindset of, I'm going to use what I have or what's working today to figure it out. And I do remember before every match, we sat down and we wrote down goals. And I had 2 or 3 things that either applied to tactically to the person I was playing, or just to myself and what I was going to focus on during the match. I think one of them was like head up and shoulders back, in terms of always being confident no matter what happens. And those really helped me focus on the way, like you were saying, the GPS, going towards the goal and not just focusing on the outcome in the end and panicking if it didn't seem like I was going to get there. And that actually helped calm my nerves, because no matter what the score was, I was thinking about what I was going to do in the point, and how I was going to get to my forehand, or how I was going to break them down based off their game style, how I was going to accept that sometimes I'll lose points on my service games because they hit a good return, and that's fine. It's nothing to do with my serve. So I think all of those things combined, and just focusing on those aspects that I went into the match originally and stayed through it the whole time. And I think that was the hardest part, honestly, because you can do it for a couple games. Anyone can. You can stay focused and have a good couple points, couple games, maybe even a set, but it's hard to keep it up for a match or two or a whole tournament. So I think that's what got me through it, is realizing that I don't have to play my best to win a tennis match.
That is so key though, Anca, not having to play your best, because a lot of people think that when they train, oh, I had good training today, so, I should be able to play really well when I go play a match, and they go play that match. It's like, wait, what just happened? You're like, whoa. They almost like, I don't know what happened. I froze or whatever. And you nailed it right there. It's, practice is just, working on your tools. But when you go play a match, it's now you have to switch to the being competitive, have a plan, execute your plan. And that executing the plan, like you said, it's easy when you are fresh in the match. Not so easy when you are you're playing a higher seed, for example, that you might not think you should be winning, and then you are, right? So you're you're getting close to like finishing the set, and especially when you're that close to the finish line, and that's when that like, and it takes strength. And you definitely had the strengths. Yeah, I knew you were competitive. We just had to give you the key to unlock it. And I remember specifically at the nationals, besides having fun, yelling on the side, and every right before you walked on the court, it was 2 different objectives every day. I don't know if you remember that, because you can get stagnate, because it's like it's normal for everyone to go to the match and they're nervous, right? And so it's how quickly you settle down. And then to have two objectives that you are going to go with when you're nervous, when you're stressed, if you can just focus on those objectives, that will get you through a lot of gray area.
For sure. I think that's one of the things that stresses me out the most in matches is when I don't know what I'm gonna do, or when I walk up to the line and I don't have a plan. I don't know where I'm gonna hit this serve and the next ball, and that's when it all goes south, to say the least. But I think that helped a lot, and like you said, changing the objectives was really key too. Because even now, when I practice, I have to tell myself every day something new. Because if I tell myself the same thing, it's kind of like your brain goes on autopilot, and then at one point you realize I'm not actually focusing on it anymore. It's just I'm just doing whatever. So I think that was like gearing it towards the play I was playing or what I was working on that week, and that that helped me a lot that week in nationals.
Okay, so do you think that you regained, there's a momentum shift. I talk a lot about momentum with players as well, right? So you go play, and when you're just starting out in tournaments, you're excited, adrenaline, you can't wait, especially when you have good results like you did when you were younger. So the momentum is easy, it's going up. And then at some point, obviously we all know that progress cannot keep going up. At some point it'll plateau out, and then it'll dive down. The momentum is go up or it goes down, right? How, and I'm a believer in that, and you worked extremely hard. When your momentum was down, you had to work really hard, I felt, on yourself. And that goes for everyone, right? It's easy to blame on everyone and everything, and especially tennis, right? And not taking responsibility for your own doing. Would you say that's what happened?
Yeah, I think it was definitely tough. And when you're at those moments, those low points, there's an extra challenge associated with, because when you're going up and you've been having this momentum, this confidence built up from many matches, it almost feels like, nothing can take you down. So then you have this extra push in matches, extra push and motivation in practice. But when you're down there and you've been struggling, it's hard to get up in the morning when we were going at 6 a.m. doing those 2-mile runs. It's hard to get up and be like, oh, this is all worth it because I'm going to go out there this weekend and win this match. So it's almost like you're competing against yourself every single day to tell yourself that this is going to work in the long run if you just keep pushing. And even when you're at those low points, it can also feel like everyone's against you, because maybe, I don't know, maybe in like college tennis, you don't make the lineup because you've been struggling and they need people who have been doing great to get the W. So it's hard to feel like you're supported in those moments too. But I think that's what helped me a lot, is having my parents there all the time, which I knew no matter what would support me, and having like you and the academy there who just no matter what was pushing me to get better. So I think that helps me get out of that low stump for sure.
The question here, or there are a lot of questions, people automatically think that confidence is associated with wins. And I disagree with that. With that, because if that was true, then they can just go play in some mock level, like way lower, and get the wins. But then I believe true confidence comes from overcoming your obstacles, because then you build in the trust mechanism inside of you that whenever things get tough on the court, I have that strength. I have that mental strength, the trust that I can deal with this. And I really believe that's what you started doing when you were at that low point. We worked really hard. You worked really hard. And 100% credit to you was you gave me the trust, which I feel lacks in a lot of people, was that, your parents trusted me. with you, and you trusted what I had to say. And that made the tough days, that the mental project that you were in, that made it easier. It wasn't easy, but easier to work together. And at some point, I felt like I could separate myself and give you that space to work things out on your own. And you did. And I saw that, all of a sudden working so hard on yourself, your mindset, that you went away, or you started going on your own, trusting that, okay, I was in the pit. I worked hard. Obviously, all this is not on a conscious level, but it's on a feeling level, because I could see you, like going to the nationals. I saw you, the way you held yourself. And that's why I was so big on like posture, shoulders back, heads up, because it's, have you ever tried this? Like, it's very difficult to be sad when you put a smile on your face.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the same theory, right? You gotta like walk like you own your territory when you're on the court. You're going against you're going into battle, so you cannot afford to be sulking on the court. And that's what I really think that was your biggest step forward, was that the hard work, and you started trusting yourself.
Yeah, and I think that trust just came from, like you said, not from wins, because I hadn't played tournaments in so long, but it came from knowing that I had put the work in, and that I was there every day doing the best I can, and that I was going to be there in the matches when I needed to be. And actually, I think that nationals, I had to go through the qualifying for the first time since I ever played nationals.
Oh, that's true. That
You
is
know,
true. Yeah.
so it was kind of like you were talking about, when you're dealt with so much adversity, and then you overcome it, because I don't think anyone had won the nationals coming out of qualifying with
Oh my
this.
gosh, I completely forgot about that. You're right. Wow, you made history. You made,
I don't know
you,
about
yeah, you
history,
made,
but
you made history, Canadian history. No, that is just, to me, it's a fairy tale story, because anyone can talk about, yeah, winning this, winning that, and from the high point, but to come back, because I almost retired for my third time, call it quits, and I'm glad I did. And the only reason it stopped me from hanging up my racket on my third comeback was this thought of, I did not want to regret. What if, because if I fast forward like 10 years, when I become a mother, at that time, I was like, okay, what if I regret this? Because I didn't want to be regretting that. No, I had to know that I tried everything, no stones unturned. And I believe, and that's how I felt with you, was like, you were determined. Okay, I got myself back, or Patricia got me back on this card. And then you gave yourself a chance to work it out.
It's funny, because I think I had the same thoughts too, is maybe 10 years down the road, if I actually hang up my rackets right now, would I regret it? Would I don't know, one day be able to look my kids in the eye and tell them that I just gave up for no particular reason? I just didn't try all I could. So I think that's what, after I did get back on the court, what motivated me to give it all that I had. And at least at the end of the day, if it didn't work out, I could say I gave it everything I had, and that it just wasn't meant to be, versus I didn't even try. So
okay, I'm gonna last two questions for you. Okay, so I will give you a little time to think about it.
Okay.
What is your advice to the 12, 13-year-olds?
12, 13-year-olds. Okay. I'm gonna try and say something that isn't the same that I said to myself before, but I think it's along the same lines of,
And it's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
you
Go for it.
know, I think it's all about trying to improve yourself and find that balance between, not I'm going to go out there and do the best I can, but I'm going to go out there and find a way while also improving my game and thinking about the long term, which is again tough to do at that age, because it takes a lot of maturity to say that I'm doing the right thing and it's going to help me in the future. but I wish that I had that level of maturity before, that a lot of people, maybe coaches, had forced me to think like that instead of forcing me or putting me in a situation where I had to perform to be able to travel. Like Tennis Canada, you had to be in the top at a tournament to make a travel team, which is great in terms of getting that competitive fire out of everyone and pushing everyone against each other, which obviously made our level go up and our mental abilities go up. But I think what I would say would be, you have to focus on yourself and the long term, because as crucial as it might seem at 12 years old, in the long run, like, I don't remember any matches that I played. I'd like to say that I do when I was 12. Maybe I remember a couple in Europe, but other than that, in the end, you're not really going to remember each match. As much pressure as you put on it, it's not going to matter in the long run. So I think what does stay with you in the long run is focusing on your game and improving yourself day in and day out.
Be the driver of your own game. Basically, that's what
Exactly.
you're saying. Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. That's perfect. That's fantastic. What would you say to 15-year-olds who are in high school, right? Who's now going to
Hmm.
be in high school, looking forward to maybe to transition into college tennis or tour. Well, there's no tour now, but
Hmm.
so onto college tennis and above. What would your
Hmm.
suggestion be?
Um, well, I think, like we were talking about, is during those times, it's tough to remember that you're in this game that you love and you should have fun doing it, because you've got the pressure of maybe recruiters watching you, or the pressure of you wanting to win tournaments so you can show these colleges that that you're good enough to go there. And I think that all of those things are added pressure. And that's when, like we talked about, you need to be your best friend and tell yourself that you're going to make it. And there's a lot of opportunities out there. Like, I know I wanted to go to an Ivy League school because I thought that, I needed to get a degree from there to be able to get a good job. And that's just not the case in the real world. Every college in the US is just such a good education. And there's so many opportunities out there that you can't put so much pressure on yourself to get that one particular school, or you can't put pressure to win this one tournament because there's a recruiter watching me, because that's when you attract the things that you're scared of, and that's when you'll probably end up using that fear to actually downplay your game and not show up as much as you want to. So I think that's what helped me, and what I did in the nationals was I just had fun and focused on the things that I needed to do to play well, and I accepted the fact that if I do those things, it'll work out in the end.
The misconception of a lot of high schooler student athletes is that just based on performance is what coaches are looking for. And I
Yeah.
don't, and that's not true. Obviously they want players, competitors on the team, a strong player, but they're also looking for somebody who is a team player, right?
Hmm.
A well-rounded team player, responsibility, somebody who adds to the team and not just be a solo. And they don't just based on, coaches don't just based on one bad tournament to determine, because they
Exactly.
understand, right? They understand everybody has bad days,
Hmm.
and
And
I will end our session by saying that a good and extraordinary coach from extraordinary colleges, they are not so much just looking for players who are playing awesome. They're really wanting to see when the players are missing these easy shots, when they're having a tough time that day, what are they doing? What are they doing on the court? What are they doing to get themselves out? How are they handling these um, obstacles on the court and challenges when things are not going well? And
mhm,
that is the character coming out, telling the coaches, because as you know, in college, every match, you never know. Every match is a grind. Every match, you got, depending what schools you play against, you get these um, drunks, they're early in the morning and they're all drunk and they come out and they're screaming on the side. So there's a lot of things to hold your nerves in college tennis to still be able to perform.
yeah, for sure. And I think now talking to my coach, and she mentioned after I was recruited that one of the things that stood out to her the most wasn't necessarily my results, but she watched a match that I played in Florida, and I had lost 7-6 in the third. And I remember telling myself too, because I knew she was watching, that I needed to hold it together. As much as I wanted to start screaming or crying or kicking and yelling. Um, and she said that that's one of the key things that stood out was that whole match, no matter how nervous I was, and she could tell I was, because I mean, she was there for the first time, and it was obviously, an opportunity that I didn't want to lose. So I think that stood out to me the most was that she actually didn't really care that I had lost that match. She cared that I was composed during the whole time and even after the match. And I think that's what a lot of people don't know. And I didn't know either going into it. I came out of that match thinking I just lost that match. I'm not going to Michigan. Like, that's the end of the day. So I think again, to those 15-year-olds, it's never over. And if you keep your head up high, you don't know what's going to happen or what doors are going to open for you.
Oh my gosh, Anca, what maturity. What maturity. That is so awesome. Well, thank you for spending the time with me this morning. And, for sure, I'm going to send it to my social media team, and they're going to use a lot of snippets from this video. And
hopefully good ones. Get my good side.
oh, they're all good sides. They're all good sides. So anyways, but thank you again. I'll let you know. I'll tag you. I'll have them tag you when they're posting it. I don't know when they're posting it. So I just do my stuff and they do theirs.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm so happy to be a part of your new project now.
Oh, if you have that picture, send it to me that we had there. Because I do have one photo that your mom actually sent it to me of the one and only at nationals, because
I don't know why I don't have any more. I think
it's weird.
Yeah, you would think that that'd be a memory that I would want to keep, but I guess not.
Oh, but I bet you Tennis Canada would have some.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Oh, I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to reach out to them. So, all right. Well, have a good weekend. Are you all playing this weekend?
Yeah, we're playing Illinois and Northwestern this weekend at home.
Oh, at home. Okay.